Oh, you did. Oops. Great. I was gonna start this video driving the Blazer over to the other cars. First, we're gonna have to jump start it because somebody didn't unplug the stupid dash cam. Well, welcome to 2020, I guess. And I say that because this is the first update video of this year, I think. And I'm sure, just like everyone else this year, my life has been a little crazy. But I've been trying to keep up with videos and keep putting content up while also fixing all of my broken junk. And I was gonna start by having all the cars next to each other, but I guess that's just not how things are going today. Other than last week, or maybe even including last week, depending on whether or not you like somewhat more modern vehicles, there hasn't been too much car content recently. Pretty much entirely because those videos are really hard to edit. And honestly, time and energy have been a bit of a hard thing to come by recently. Since I have a whole lot of stuff backlogged, like, I don't even know at this point, like probably like 12 terabytes of video footage. The huge amount of oil leaking. We're just ignoring it. Pretty sure it's just the oil drain leaking. Just needs a new washer or something. Hello and welcome to this perfect and unproblematic start to our July 2020 update video. It's been a while since we did one of these and everything has been crazy. I'd like to loosely talk about some of our project cars and other projects and where we're at with everything right now. Since our most recent video was installing the lift kit on our 2007 Silverado, I guess it only makes sense to start with this one. It's sometimes a little on and off, but this truck is usually my daily driver. But at the moment it's got a couple of issues. You saw us install that lift kit in the last video, and since then we have put new leaf springs on it. We'll talk about that in another video for it. But it's developed a very annoying front end clunk. There's a very good chance it has to do with the visibly leaking front struts that have rusted all the way through, but I've been ignoring that and seeing if I can find anything else that's wrong. Okay, fine, I do have new front struts for it, the cheapest money can buy, that we will be installing, hopefully, in the next week or so. Other than that, this thing keeps on trucking along. Just recently, I changed the spark plugs and fixed a funny idle that it's had for quite a long time. So that's good. That made a big difference. I'm very happy with that. It does have an airbag light, the SRS light on, and I haven't quite figured out what's up with that, but I suspect it has something to do with a scanner that I tried to use on this truck. This also has to do with how we've done 2 sponsored review videos for Fuzzy Dice projects, but not any recently. And other than maybe some special exceptions, I don't think I want to do any more of those. I've been declining them left and right recently. And one of the reasons is this little guy. This is a Topdon scanner they sent to me for review. I told them I was going to say bad things about it online after I had some issues with the scanner. So I did give them fair warning. They never got back to me. They kind of just ghosted me, so that's cool. And I don't really feel like making it its own entire video, but this thing sucks. The very first time I tried to use it, I plugged it into the Silverado and the transmission stopped shifting correctly. All of the lights on the dash lit up. Transmission seemed like it was in some kind of a limp mode, so I had to get to a nearby parking lot, shut the truck off, unplug the scanner, use my other scanner to reset all of the random codes that every individual system had, and then I was able to start the truck back up and it drove normally. That was pretty cool, and I vowed never to plug the thing in again. I've never heard of anything like that. I've never had an issue like that before, but it sure did not like the truck. And not too long after that, the SRS light came on. I tried to communicate it with a scanner that had previously been capable of it, and it just doesn't see it. It can't talk to the SRS module. And every once in a while, an unrelated system will throw a communication error. These bus errors never happened before, so I'm pretty confident this is all related to that scanner. So we took it out to the farm and made sure it would never hurt anyone else again. That scanner actually has decent reviews on Amazon. I might have just had a bad one. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't give it to somebody else to plug into anything, so I figured the only solution was just to get rid of it. Anyway, that aside, the truck has been doing okay. It's got that clunk in the front end. Pretty sure it's just the strut. Everything else seems to be doing, oh, actually, the other CV axle boot is torn, but you'd never know because it's being held together with duct tape. It's just a little bit torn. I need to replace that. If you watched the lift kit video, you saw I replaced the outer driver's side one. Should have also replaced passenger side one because about 8, maybe 10 months later, it did also tear. Now we have a full set of boots that we're going to be installing. I also need to do some rewiring because my lights aren't working so good. The relays, I think they probably just have water in them, but I can turn my switches on all I want, but doesn't necessarily mean the lights will come on. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I really do want to rewire that, use a waterproof fuse and relay box. That'll be somewhere down the line. Also, I've been going back and forth about it for a long time. I keep going back and forth about whether or not I want to take the light bar out of the bed. It's really not too bad space-wise. Every once in a while, there's something that's really annoying to get in there. I don't think I've actually had to give up on anything because of them, but it does sometimes make things annoying. Yeah, I don't know. They are pretty gaudy. I'll give them that. They would look more at home on an older style truck, but I always wanted them. And I don't hate the way they look or anything. I don't know, what do you guys think? Should I just take the light bars off and just take all the rear light wiring out of there? Very useful, like they do a pretty good job of lighting everything up. I'm keeping the front lights no matter what. I really like those and they can be useful. These are pretty much the cheapest lights you can buy. These two are perfect. This one has a little bit of rust and this one looks like it's been underwater. Also, there's the matter of all this rust, which I have been ignoring and pretending is not a problem for quite a while now. Both fenders are totally rusted out. You can get patch panels because this is not an uncommon problem. And I'm probably gonna have to do that, just cut this entire section out. But it's all the way rusted through the inner and outer. So I put some rust converter on it. I'll probably just redo that and keep ignoring it. It's been a problem since before I had the truck. Oh well, it's a pain in the ass, but at least it's not structurally dangerous or anything. And that about covers the Silverado. How about the vehicle we've shown once or twice? I haven't really talked much about it. This is a 1987 Fiero GT. It needs a transmission rebuild. I have the parts to do it. I just haven't had the time just yet. This is an automatic car. It has a TH125, and I do plan on keeping it, so don't yell at me too much about that, please. Obviously, just like everything else, we'll cover this in more detail once this has its own series, which it definitely will as soon as I start really getting to work on it. But it had a throttle valve cable related failure. Forward kind of works. If you give it a ton of gas, it does work a little bit. It will roll forward under its own power. It's not happy about it at all. Also, pretty sure all the brakes are locked up now. They weren't before. Don't know what's up with that. It does not like to move. Reverse works great. It loves going in reverse. It'll go in reverse for days. Except when I started it up the other day, apparently from sitting, because it was totally fine before I parked it, yeah, one of the head gaskets is totally destroyed. So, yeah, this thing is gonna be a project. Kind of didn't want to have to deal with that, but I guess we will be. I've drained the coolant out, although it somehow still drips sometimes. The hoses are all back on. I don't know how it's doing that. Yeah, every part of this car, I've changed the oil, and that was a whole debacle. Every part of this car I've touched has been trouble. I like it though. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's got something going on for it. So unfortunately, I still can't give any information on when that series will be happening. I have, like I said, I have some footage for it, but I haven't really done much beyond changing the oil, and that doesn't make for the most riveting viewing. As soon as I can find the time to work on this thing, we're taking out the engine and transmission, and this thing is going to get a whole lot of work done. So there definitely will be a series, but I don't know when just yet. Unfortunately, I can't promise anything. What about what's under this cover? The 78 Firebird. I don't really feel like taking the cover off. I'll put in a stock picture here or something. Okay, fine. I'll take the front of the cover off. This car cover, I don't remember the brand of this thing, is actually pretty good. This is for a four-door sedan. These cars are really long, and there've been a couple spots that aren't super happy, not the happiest about what's going on here. But it fits okay for I think it was like 60 bucks. It's destroyed 2 car covers already. It's not so bad, but I did need these lashing straps to hold it down. That's why that tore was everything flopping around in the wind. sitting in the corner of the driveway here. Unfortunately, there is a lot of wind. First thing you might notice, you haven't seen recently, is the hood scoop is gone. I actually sold that to a friend. I won't be able to use it once we put the new engine in there. So I sold that to a friend. He's gonna have it on his V8 S10. I'm sure that'll show up here on this channel in some form. This thing still works great. In fact, the only reason I can't drive it right now, the only reason I'm not driving it right now because I shouldn't be, is because I messed with it. I changed this lower pulley for the supercharger belt, and that in itself isn't a problem. The problem is there's a whole lot of run out in it. And there was with the last one too, but I was able to kind of center it and tighten it, and it stayed centered once it was tightened. But in order to center everything, I need to take these V-belts off. And well, there are two problems. First, this water pump bolt, this is going to be impossible to see, but this water pump bolt, the boss on the water pump itself is actually totally broken off. So it's just a bolt and a nut kind of hanging out there, and it gets the job done, but it's a pain to loosen and tighten that belt. And this alternator bracket here is totally toast. I'm pretty sure if I loosen this and try to tighten it one more time, it's all gonna fall apart. So I can't loosen these belts to center that, and it's got a lot of wobble, so I shouldn't be driving it. It's gonna wreck the crankshaft bearings and maybe some other stuff too if I keep driving it like that. So right now this thing has just been sitting, unfortunately. I don't want to devote the time or money to fix this when it's just getting a new engine put in it. New in huge quotation marks. So unfortunately, that's the state of that. This engine runs great, works great, this car drives great, and I can't drive it because really just the stupid belts, the accessory drive stuff. If you look up close at this, you can see how cantilevered that is. It's because this edge is too thin. This summit bracket, we installed this in one of the Firebird series videos. I'm sure the part number is there somewhere, probably, maybe. But this thing sucks. Don't even think about getting one of these, it's awful. And unfortunately, that about covers that. We'll talk about the engine in a little bit here. Haven't yet decided if I want to show it or not, because it is a spoiler, but I'm also spoiling other things. We'll keep talking. I'll decide if I want to show the progress on the engine for this thing in detail. For now, we got to close the hood because it is desperately trying to rain, and this car is water soluble. And we saw it start up and drive earlier. Clearly it still does, but let's talk a little bit about the 1988 S10 Blazer. Out of all of my project vehicles on this channel, this was the first, and it is still very, very much a project, a work in progress, you might say. This thing is terrible. Don't get me wrong. I love this thing, but it's also kind of terrible. And I keep ignoring all the broken things, which makes other things break out of spite, I guess. I'm not really sure. And yes, this frickin' dent is still here, but we will be fixing it. All the way in the corner over here behind all kinds of stuff. That is a fender. That is an S10 fender. I do actually have a new fender for it. And the new seat rail, because I managed to break one of them, it just totally rusted through, and the driver's side seat is only loosely held. It's got 3 corners. That's most of them. It's got some headlight trim and some other pieces I needed. And over in the shed is this core support into this grill. I just grabbed this grill because it's steel. It's real tacky, it's not going on in that color. But I was thinking if I cut off every other slat, it would look a little meaner, kind of more military-esque, which is more or less the look of the truck. I've broken the plastic grill more than once, and all the other ones of this era are pretty brittle by this point, so I'm afraid of breaking them again. This was at a junkyard, I just figured why not. Back here is also something a friend gave to me, that Neil, the same friend I sold the hood scoop to. It's a tire carrier. That is a S10 Blazer tire carrier. There's a couple tricks here. One of them is that there needs to be reinforcing in the body where that bolts to, and even from the factory, these were notoriously a little bit on the light duty side. They would have some issues, especially if you tried putting bigger tires on them. So I don't even know if that's going to be installed, or maybe we'll modify it and reinforce some mounting for it. It's just, you know, another option. There's also an interfender over there on top of the pressure washer. So that's the body stuff, but there's still a little bit of an elephant in the room, and it's something I teased last update video. And I kind of sort of implied that we were going to put the supercharger out of the 78 Firebird into this thing. That is still the plan, and I've been gathering parts for it, although the work hasn't actually happened because I do have to take that car apart, which I guess is fair game now since I'm not driving it anyway, to put all the parts into this thing. A lot of the planning involved there is just trying to prevent from blowing this thing up. Really, the only reason I don't want to take the entire engine out of that and put it in here is this engine is actually a little lower compression than that one. The 78 Firebird's current engine is, I don't know exactly, I think it's around 9.0 to 1. So it's a little high for the supercharger, even with 93 octane. This thing's got dirt compression. I don't remember the exact number, I'll put it on the screen here. I actually finally went through and found the piston data, which I never could find before. I think this is the real compression ratio of this engine. So this would be perfect for a supercharger, and it really explains why this thing is such a dog. This also already has an RV cam in it, the one we installed last time, which would be very happy with a supercharger. So that'll be great. I'm sure everything won't fall apart when we do that. There's also a viewer I've been talking to who offered to send me his lift kit off of his S10, and I'm not sure if that's going to pan out, but I figured it would be worth mentioning because it would be, you know, it might be something that ends up happening with this truck. And last but not least, of course, I cannot ignore the 91 Firebird. Well, I do ignore it, I shouldn't. But for this video, obviously, we do need to talk about it. The last episode for this car was working on the hatch lift assembly, and I don't have the key here, but it does still work. It works actually perfectly fine now. And in fact, until very recently, I was driving this car often, and then I had an issue. And the issue was I decided to check the timing. I had been ignoring it since it seemed to run pretty well. It had some weird driving quirks, but it really wasn't bad. So I finally checked the timing, and it was off. It was way off. And I realized that there was no computer spark control of timing at all. Or more specifically, it wasn't advancing the timing. It would move around a little bit. I couldn't figure out what was going on with it. And I've poked at it a couple times, but I have no idea. Knock sensor has been replaced. The wiring has been verified. I got a new spark control module. I lost the new spark control module. It's around here somewhere. Put that in there. It didn't change anything at all. I unplugged the computer, plugged it back in, unplugged the prom chip, plugged it back in. Some people said that helped with their problem. It didn't do anything for me. So unfortunately, I suspect it might be a computer issue. I don't know if anyone has any ideas. This isn't the Firebird series, but while we're here, you know, I'm open to suggestions. Otherwise, that computer control distributor is coming out, and we're just gonna shove a big old-fashioned HEI in there. I'm gonna keep the TBI because it seems to work well, but without any computer controlled timing, it's hard to get the thing to run right, and it actually finally explains all of the weird little quirks it has when driving it. Although again, it is still drivable. It runs okay. It's not like fast. And the check engine light comes on if you put it under a lot of load all of a sudden, especially when like going from cruising to driving in second or third gear. Check engine light will come on and then it'll kind of sort itself out. I really am not a big fan of TBI, as we saw. If you've seen the earlier Blazer episodes, I've had my fights with it before and just decided to take it out and use a carburetor. But I like this thing's gas mileage, and I don't want to mess with it too much as long as it's working. But if it stops working, all bets are off. And as far as performance and whatever, like I said, I don't want to mess with this too much if I don't have to. It just cruises really nice, and I like it for that. But if everything else fails, I've decided the only thing I don't think I want to do is cut a hole in this nice hood. So as much as I like them, a supercharger is probably out of the question. Purely hypothetical, of course. And a big block is a little too big for these things, but I wouldn't be against like building a 383 for this or something. Not that that's a plan. We're not doing that. Don't tell me in the comments to do that. But that's pretty much it. This thing is still working. We have new seats for it, as you see in the pile over here. I like these are 4th gen Camaro seats, and they bolt right in, and I like those a lot. And they're a little bit lower, which is good for me. But that's about it. I've put a couple hundred, maybe more miles on this thing. I guess I don't know. The odometer still doesn't work. Just like the Fiero, I haven't had time to get around to it yet, so it's still just sitting here, kind of working. You know, like all my other projects. And this isn't my project, but it will definitely be on the series. I have a enormous amount of video for this thing. This is Sean's Volvo 240. We're working on this thing almost every weekend. It has been an incredible amount of work, and nothing has gone right. And you know, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's been here over a year now. But look, it's got some shiny parts and a Ford 8.8. So something's happening in here, you know. And this highly questionable 6 liter is sitting in here. The transmission is actually bolted in. What I would say is do not put a 4L80 in these. It does not fit. We're making it work, but it sucks. Just get a 4L60 if you're gonna make one of these things and have it be automatic. And that's all the cars sitting here, but what about the Datsun? The original project car on this channel. Well, unfortunately, it's sitting in the same place it has for A couple years. He's started up, he's moved it around, but it still leaks gas. It still needs a lot of work. We're gonna fix it up for autocross this year, for this summer, but then 2020 happened and everything is shut down, so you couldn't do that even if we wanted to, and we figured it would be better to get his Volvo together first. The Datsun will definitely be back, no question about it, but I have no idea when. What about Rob's Jeep Cherokee? We have worked on it a little bit since then. He drove it around for a while, but we got sidetracked when his other car, this Chevy HHR, had issues, and we'll have a video on that thing, replacing the timing chain, because that was an adventure. But we have some plans to actually work on the Jeep next week, this upcoming week, because its brake and fuel lines are toast, the oil pan gasket is leaking a lot, and it just needs some regular old maintenance. It is still running and driving though. We also haven't seen it yet, but my girlfriend's 1996 Honda Accord will definitely feature in at least one, probably more, upcoming videos, because that thing keeps breaking and making me cry. But that also means I have a whole lot of footage of replacing things and poking at things on it and trying to diagnose all of the many things that are wrong. We also have yet another Fuzzy Dice Friends video of Sean's, it's a Subaru WRX, and it is also, well, it has character. He bought it with a slipping clutch and a misfire. We changed the clutch. We'll have a video on that. That was also an adventure. And eventually he mostly sorted out the misfire, but the car is it's still a bit iffy. It is currently his daily driver though. I also, let's mention this briefly. This isn't going to be in a video. This is an engine block that a friend of a friend had fail on him, and they brought it here. We're gonna see if there's anything savable, but this had water freeze in it, and this is a good example of why freeze plugs are not freeze plugs at all. They really are just core plugs, and calling them freeze plugs is misleading. Here, if you look at it from the side, it's hard to see. You see that line there? It is cracked all the way around. This block is junk. It's even more visible on this side. The block right against the cylinders is cracked and broken. It's actually bulged out. Might be hard to make that out, but it actually is not flat anymore. Just thought that was interesting. If you see this in the background, that's all that is. We're not really gonna do anything with this. I have no idea when it's gonna happen, but at some point we will go through and do a tool tour, I guess, video, because we got a lot of stuff and it's all kind of a mess, but there's a lot of stuff here. You see a lot of it in the videos, but I would like to go into a little more detail. How things are organized, how I find the tools that I need, when it is appropriate to tell your significant other that you've bought more tools, you know, things that could maybe help keep somebody else out of trouble. But I guess we should address the elephant in the room, the thing I've been spending a tremendous amount of my time on. This is the 454 for the 78 Firebird. Actually, you know, I guess we shouldn't talk about that. I don't want to spoil it. Okay, we're just gonna end the video here. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Okay, fine. So yes, I painted it anti-seize gray. The actual engine itself was pretty okay, but the supercharger and its missing parts and absolutely everything else not fitting has been an absolute catastrophe. Well, I mean, we got here, so it's been an ordeal at least. And it's actually been about 10 weeks here. I've been waiting to get a part back from the machine shop because I had to have something custom made, or at least custom modified for me, because I couldn't buy it anymore and I couldn't get one and I couldn't make it myself. I tried. You'll see that in the videos. So that was a long wait. That's part of why everything is taking so long, but the rest of it is just nothing fits like this. These carburetors are sitting on here. They're not actually bolted down because it hits the vacuum tube, the PCV port on that guy. I never ever would have considered that. I never would have thought that would be a problem. So we're gonna have to cut that port short, I guess. I don't think there's really anything else I can do with that while still keeping both carburetors level. And I was going to run them sideways, which is why you actually see this this bell crank intake mounted linkage here. And then I realized I couldn't do it with vacuum secondary electric chokes, at least not these particular carburetors. The throttle levers were hitting everything, was hitting everything. It was not going to happen, so they got to be mounted in line. I think that's about as much detail as I want to go into. You've seen it, I've been working on it, it exists. It is not nearly as low buck as I originally wanted it to be, but it's still, all things considered, pretty cheap. The supercharger stuff has ended up costing me more than I wanted it to, but otherwise, it's not so bad. I definitely could ramble on about more things, but we gotta save something for the videos, and also I'm melting. The other reason I haven't been doing too much recently is it's been 90 plus degrees every single day, and right now it's actually still not raining, but it is humid as all heck, and I am going to be a puddle. And other than thank yous, which again are very important because you guys are the best. I'm sorry the videos haven't all been bangers, and you know, this is an update video. The reason this video is coming out is because I just couldn't find the time to edit another full video in the last 2 weeks. I've had 2 weeks and I haven't been able to do it. So unfortunately that's the reality, is these videos take an incredibly long time to edit. I'm gonna have to work on that in the future. This is not sustainable. I wanna bring you guys this content, and I will, and I really am working on it. Almost all of my time is devoted to either, you know, life's responsibilities or this channel, whether it's building stuff or editing videos. And with this heat, the heat is a pretty good excuse to not be out here, but I constantly wanna get this thing together. I wanna tinker with it. I think there's one last tease for this video, and that's this little guy sitting over here in the corner. I think we'll leave it up to your imagination as to what that is. There is another upcoming project. I also don't know when that one's gonna happen, and it doesn't belong to me. I cannot have any more cars. I absolutely cannot do any more. They're all already broken. I can't take on any more projects, but I can peer pressure my friends into buying more cars, and that's exactly what happened. And that's what this guy's for. You'll definitely be seeing that in the future in at least a partial series. But for now, that really will do it. Thank you so much for staying with us through 2020. I really hope everyone out there is healthy and staying safe and doing whatever you can to support each other, to help each other. Everybody just, you know, keep doing the best you can. I wish everyone out there the best of luck. Cover this back up. I think they really believed me when I said it was paint and not just anti-seize. And the fuel pump is still running, and the battery's probably dead. Yeah, I had my headphones in, so I didn't hear that the fuel pump was still running. But yes, I did kill the battery again. We're gonna have to leave this thing running for a while to let it charge.